The next speaker is Charlotte Hill from Penningtons, Manches and Coopers LLP from the law firm. She's a partner with the law firm and practices in financial services, company disputes, corporate insolvency and civil fraud. Her today's topic will concentrate on privacy coins and the law of privacy. Is this relationship a paradoxical? So, Charlotte, we're very happy to have you here, to have you with us, and if you are ready, the year is yours.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I'm just trying to share my screen without having my notes. So thank you so much to TGS Baltic for having me today. And sorry for getting off to that slow start there with my lack of technology skills, which is quite ironic considering I'm going to be discussing with you cryptocurrency and privacy coins and the interaction that they may have with the data protection regime. Delighted to be joining you today from our London office. And over the next 10 minutes or so, I hope to cover off some of the key interactions and the parodies between cryptocurrency and the UK's GDPR regime. First, I plan to explore on a headline level what cryptocurrency is. I suspect many people now understand or at least know of cryptocurrency, have heard of some of the most popular cryptos such as Bitcoin, Ether, USDT. And then the nuance to that is what privacy coins are, because they are a type of cryptocurrency, but they are slightly different. And then I will then move on to how cryptocurrencies interact and relate with the UK's GDPR regime. Cryptocurrency is a new phenomenon, and in the UK at least, and I believe it's the same in Europe and elsewhere, laws are yet to really be established to be built around the crypto regime. And so we're trying to fit this new type of technology into the current laws, and I'm hoping to explore with you quite how that works for now. So first and foremost, just breaking it down, cryptocurrency, if you think of it, you've got two words there, crypto and currencies. Crypto really means, in essence, hidden or secret, and that really reflects a secure technology that is used to record who owns what, and to make, it's the ledger in essence, to record the payments that are being made on chain. The second part of the word currency tells us the reason that cryptocurrencies were designed in the first place. And they are, some would say, a type of electronic cash. But most cryptocurrencies aren't like the cash that we carry, or we certainly used to carry, in our purses, wallets, or handbags. Instead, they exist electronically and they use a peer-to-peer system. There's no central bank or government authority to manage the system, most importantly, and in fact to step in if something goes wrong. And so some people find this appealing. It means for various political reasons, it may be attractive to make sure that you control your own crypto by peer-to-peer consensus rather than having one governing body approving it. But of course, there are downsides and risks to that, which I won't get into for the purpose of today, because otherwise we could be here all day. So moving on, cryptocurrencies are a form of currency that is used and stored and traded on a blockchain. And a blockchain is a distributed ledger technology, DLT, and that in essence builds the blocks as you go, and it records the transactions. And you need common consensus across the entire network for the blocks to be approved and for the chain quite literally to be built. And so cryptocurrencies are traded on blockchains. And the first nuance here, I think, is to make clear is that they are not truly anonymous. So I'm going to use Bitcoin as an example, just because most people have heard about Bitcoin over the last, goodness knows, however many years now. It's been out since 2009. Bitcoin is pseudonymous in nature, and it may in fact actually, ironically, offer less privacy than traditional fiat currencies. And the reason for this is because Bitcoin is built on a public blockchain, which means that anyone in the world with the resources and the capability to carry out chain analysis could potentially verify and trace a transaction on the blockchain, so long as you know the wallet's public address. And so in theory, that means that you can detect exactly who the owner of that crypto is, who they acquired the Bitcoin from, where they traded it, how they dealt with it, and when it went out of their account. And so it's not truly anonymous, as some people like to think crypto is. And so it follows, therefore, that the sending and receiving addresses of Bitcoin transactions have the potential to be linked to real-world entities. And that tends to happen because many exchanges require their users to go through the usual KYC and AML processes to ensure that their identities are known before they're able to use the exchange. And in fact, that happens regularly in crypto fraud transactions. And I'm in court actually on Thursday dealing with this very matter, where a potential victim has lost his Bitcoin. He claims that they have been stolen by conspiracy, and as a result, he's been able to go to various exchanges with court orders to ask for the identities of those wallet holders to be disclosed, such that he can then trace the alleged wrongdoers. So that happens day in, day out, and that actually means that the blockchain isn't infallible. You can find out information on it. And it's recorded, and as I'll come on to later, it's not reversible, which is very important. So that's public crypto. But in contrast, what I wanted to explore today, and this is a slight nuance to crypto, is privacy coins are private. They are different to other cryptocurrencies because they intend to give their users the ability to transact on an anonymous basis. And even law enforcement agencies find these really difficult to trace. And they are very good at tracing. I mean, the Department of Justice in the United States just last month, no doubt many of you heard about this, seized, I think it was $3.6 billion worth of cryptocurrency based on a hack of the Bitfinex exchange back in 2016. So they can trace it, but privacy coins are so much harder to trace. And some say impossible. I don't know, I don't trace them, but I can imagine just how difficult it is. And so it will come as no surprise to the audience, therefore, that privacy coins have become the focus of both regulators and law enforcement agencies' attention in recent times, because, of course, particularly those involved in wrongdoing may be able to conceal their identities and facilitate money laundering and the funding of terrorism and things like that through the use of them. So I appreciate we're here today at a data protection conference, and I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. How does cryptocurrency then tie in with that? Well, I suspect many of you will have heard already some of these key points I've been talking about. The fact that the transactions recorded on the blockchain, for example, are irreversible. The fact that if you're using a public blockchain particularly, the data on there is irreversible, it's permanent, and it cannot be amended. So with that in mind, we have got things such as Article 17 and Article 16, in fact, of the GDPR, which really come into play here. There is no legislation in the UK, and I understand actually worldwide, that deals with privacy coins, because they are a relatively new creation. And I mean, so far as English law is going, we are able to put lots of our laws and to apply them to cryptocurrency because we deem it to be property. But actually, you know, cryptocurrency doesn't fit in with every law that already exists. And so no doubt amendments will need to be made to that in the future. But under the UK's GDPR and Data Protection Act regime, which, the same as Europe, places personal data at the forefront of data regulation, we of course have the so-called rights to be forgotten and the rights to erasure. And I had hoped to have on my slide for you the definition to remind us what that quite means. But just to summarise, the right is to obtain from the controller the erasure of personal data concerning him or her without undue delay. And the controller shall have the obligation to erase personal data without undue delay. And so this presents obvious compliance challenges when considering Article 17 in conjunction with blockchain technology. And as I say, on the blockchain, you will record the data and it is irreversible. And so there are problems there. One way around it that commentators have discussed is whether or not you could hash the data, which means you in essence obscure it and you make it to a form where you can no longer trace back the original data. But I don't believe that would go far enough to comply with this regime by erasing all personal data. The other point that has been discussed is whether you could de-link the personal data with the actual transaction data. So the personal data would be out there, the transaction data would be out there, but you wouldn't see them connected. And they wonder whether that would be sufficient to comply with the right to be forgotten. And I do think, while that may go some way so that the individual is clearly not identifiable to that specific transaction, it would still be accessible. And so arguably, I don't believe the blockchain technology would be compliant with that right either. And then moving on to, as I said earlier, the Article 16, the right to rectification, that of course assumes that data can be modified or erased where necessary to comply with legal requirements. But blockchains, as I've already said, render those modifications of data impossible. And the reason for that is to ensure that the data is integral and that there is trust built within the network. And so you can see, I would submit, how these two sort of regimes are in direct contrast to one another and just don't comply. And so that's why I think privacy coins offer quite an interesting angle here, because they may well go some way to alleviate this tension, because of course they can allow individuals participating in on-chain transactions to remain anonymous and potentially untraceable. And so I think when you're looking at the data protection regime, the use of privacy coins actually probably would satisfy that much more. And while you may not be able to, again, erase the data or to modify it, you could at the very least conceal it in essence, and so your data wouldn't be falling within the public domain. But then, that being said, of course, while that helps the data protection side, there would of course be other concerns with privacy coins. I've already mentioned questions about why they're really being used, why we are concealing our identities, and they may well fuel speculation for things such as money laundering and counter-terrorist financing issues, as well as a whole host of other criminal and civil issues. So I think, just to conclude, aware of time, I've got 6 key points I think that are important to take away from this. And this really is, I wanted to flag this topic as food for thought, because I think this is a new area that needs to be developed further. And we'd be interested to hear the audience views on this, either if we've got time after this presentation or another time by email. But firstly, privacy coins are different to other cryptocurrencies. They intend to give users the ability to transact completely anonymously as opposed to pseudonymously. Secondly, they are transactions that are said to be untraceable. Thirdly, public blockchains store data that is available to all and is irreversible by design. And then with that in mind, fourthly, there's clearly then a conflict between the right to be forgotten, the right to erasure, and the right to rectification within blockchain technology. And that includes privacy coins. As I say, privacy coins simply conceal identities. They don't conceal, or they don't permit, the alteration of the blockchain or the erasure of it entirely. And so fifthly, privacy coins may well bridge that data protection gap I was just referring to by assisting with this. But as I just said, on-chain transactions, that's a mouthful, cannot be rectified, and the DLT will still be there come what may. And then finally, I think my closing point, just to remember, while privacy coins therefore perhaps appear to bridge that gap and to help us somewhat in the data protection regime, they do of course have significant AML and counter-terrorist financing issues to overcome. And in my submission, I don't think they perhaps are useful enough for that reason alone to be using them. But I welcome any thoughts and questions. Thank you.